Okay, so we're talking about resilience because one of the things that I've learned and realized from reading a few books by Cameron Haynes and Tim Grover is, they've had the chance to work with, study under, learn from some of the greatest people in their craft, whatever that may be, in really the last 20, 25 years. And as they studied, and they've written about it and they've shared about it, one of the things that hit me was this common thread of being resilient. And not only the common thread of being resilient, but the fact that we don't really know what it means to be. What hit me was what I thought resilience was. It actually is way more than that. It actually is way more than that. It's one of those things that you can build like a muscle. Right? To me, resilience always was this thing that, okay, so I face a hard situation. I got to find a way to fight through it. I'm going to fight through it when that hard situation comes. And yeah, that's kind of a common definition of resilience. And what, if you did that, a lot of people would think and say, oh, that's a resilient person, right? But we don't have the kind of results that a Jeff Bezos or an Andrew Huberman or a Michael Jordan have on the world, do we? And so maybe there's a different level of resilience that they have. Maybe there's a different level of resilience that they understand. Maybe there's different preparation that they do. And that's the thing that was illuminated to me in those books by Cameron Haynes and Tim Grover, is that there are 6 principles. And so today we're going to talk about the first one. Principle number 1, embrace chosen suffering. Now, this sounds a little bit weird. It does. It sounds a little bit weird, but here's the deal. Hard crap's going to happen. It is. Look, we all have parents, and they will all die. I don't mean to be morbid, but it's the truth. We will all face loss. We will all face hardship. We will all face things that we, right now, aren't prepared for. That we, right now, can't predict when and or how or dictate it will happen. We can't. Life throws curveballs, as we like to say, right? But let's think about it for a moment. If a batter were to get up to bat and all he ever practiced was hitting a fastball that came straight over the plate, what would he do when the pitcher threw a curveball? He'd swing and he'd miss. He'd swing and he'd miss. He'd swing and he'd miss. But we can't miss. We can't miss. And you see, and that's the thing that when we talk about this first principle of embracing chosen suffering, that's the essence of this first principle, is when life throws the crap at you that you weren't expecting, that massive curveball, how do you not miss? How do you ensure that you don't miss? And you see, the thing that I learned from studying those that Grover and Cameron Haynes worked with and learned from is all of the greats, business, sports, life, they put themselves in situations that were uncomfortable all the time deliberately. They put themselves in situations where they actually had to suffer. They created scenarios where they had to suffer and then force themselves to work through it. You see, because the reality is when life throws that curveball at you unexpectedly, there's going to be stuff in it that you're not prepared to deal with. But why not make sure all the stuff that you could prepare for, you are prepared for? Why not make sure that you know when the chips are down, how to stand back up? And see, that's what embracing chosen suffering is all about. Now, I've looked at this in my life in different ways, and I've talked about it before. I like the term "embrace chosen suffering" because it's jarring. it's jarring, right? But I've also talked about this in the past from the perspective of doing something that scares you every single day. Is if you put yourself in an uncomfortable position, if you put yourself in a position to do something that stretches you, that scares you every single day, you will be better when the curveball comes. Let me give you an example. I do a ton of walking. I do about 15,000 steps on average a day. And especially when I travel, which I travel a lot, and now that I'm living in Asia, where I don't know anyone and I don't know anything and I don't even know the streets around, I learn by walking, right? Well, years ago when I started walking, I would walk and I'd walk the same path every single day. I knew exactly how long the path was. I knew exactly where it was. I knew every step on it. I walked the same path every single day without variation, the same path. Okay. Then as I started traveling more, well, now I'm in a new city. I don't have a path. I've got to go on a path, and I would make my way and find a path and create a path to walk. And if I return to that city, I walk the exact same path. Now, here's where the story gets interesting, because on that path, there are some times where I would see a street and there might be something really interesting on that street that I would like to go see. I wouldn't. I just keep walking, because in my mind, if I veered off the path, I had the chance to get lost. Okay, yes, I know we live in modern times where we have things called navigation systems and all. That didn't matter. I couldn't veer off the path because I was afraid I would get lost and end up in a situation where I was uncomfortable. End up in a situation where I didn't know what was going on. And you see, for me, I like to know what's going on. I like to be in control. And so if I walked the path and it was a good path, I would stick to it, even though I saw detours that were really, really interesting. Now, when you're in an English-speaking country, and as my mama used to say, you got an English tongue in your head, okay. Like, that's really absurd, Atiba, right? But it makes perfect sense when you don't speak Spanish, or you don't speak Tagalog, or you don't speak Thai, or you don't speak Japanese, or German, or wherever else I am in the world. But yeah, you don't want to go off and then you can't communicate with people. And so a few years ago, I started forcing myself out of my normal path when I was home and walking in different areas. Then I started forcing myself to do it on the road. Not only did I start forcing myself to do it when I was on the road, but I forced myself not to use a navigation, to actually pay attention to where I was going, to actually understand the route that I was taking, and be able to find myself back without technology. So I forced myself to do that. About a year and a half ago is when I started really doing that. And it's led to, when I was in the States and stuff, a lot of beautiful experiences of seeing things in places and cities that I wouldn't have seen before. But then I get to Asia, and now I don't know these streets at all, right? Not at all. And I started off walking. And obviously the first time I was walking, I had to just walk and find a path. And then I started venturing. And then I started trying little things. And then I realized every day I left the building and I went to the right. And then when I went to the right, I reached a corner and I made a choice to go right or left. But what if I went out of the building and instead of going right, I went left? And then when I went left, where would that take me? Right? And that started taking me into other neighborhoods, and neighborhoods that honestly weren't the beautiful neighborhood that I live in. That was more of the where everyone else lived. And now I'm seeing things and experiencing things around people who are looking nothing like me. Not that many people look like me in the first place here, but they're all locals. And now I'm immersed in the middle of local culture. I'm walking alongside school kids going to school. And now I'm having conversations with shop owners who are feeding the local people. You see, but if I hadn't chosen to suffer, if I hadn't chosen to get out of my own comfort zone, if I hadn't chosen to be uncomfortable, if I hadn't chosen to do something that scared me a year and a half ago, I wouldn't have been able to walk here, to explore here like I have. I get to Thailand a couple weeks ago and I'm doing the same thing. And I'm going out and I'm exploring. And I see this market, okay? I see this local street market in an alley, literally, y'all. And I look at it and I'm like, oh, wow. All the produce, they're selling fish, they're selling meat, they're selling all sorts of stuff. And my first instinct was just walk by. But I said, no. We're going to embrace chosen suffering. I'm going to put myself in an environment where I know, look, I can look and see there is not a single foreigner, much less one that looks like me, on this street. I'm in Thailand. They don't speak English. I'm going to put myself in this environment. And I'm going to walk through. And yes, people are going to stare at me and wonder, who the hell is this and why is he here? What is he doing on this side of town? This is not their side of town. And I immersed myself into it. And I found this lady, and she's selling papaya and pineapple cut up. And on her papaya stand, she has a price up. Okay. Now, my sensibilities tell me that papaya is more expensive than pineapple. My sensibilities. And so I see the price for the papaya. So I take one of those and I grab a pineapple, and I'm thinking, okay, well, at most will be double what the papaya was. So I give her double. And she bags the stuff up and she looks at me and she's holding up four fingers and and she's getting agitated. And I'm like, what is it that you want? You want four more baht? And so now I think she wants coins. And so I'm looking for 4 baht of coins and trying to figure this out. And she can't communicate with me other than her 4 fingers. Meanwhile, the lady next to her, in the little booth next to her, seeing this whole thing, she's there and she's just like trying to figure it out too. And she's holding up 4 fingers. Now they're both wagging 4 fingers at me, and I'm handing them coins. I'm handing them coins, right? And you see, in that moment, I walked up that alley, and I could have just walked through, but I chose to embrace suffering a little bit more. And I know this doesn't even sound like suffering, right? I get it. It's suffering from the point of view of you put yourself in an uncomfortable position where it's tough, it's confusing, it's heavy, it's frustrating. I was frustrated. They were frustrated. And now I have to figure out how to communicate. And now I have to figure out what it is that's going to make this relationship between myself and this lady right. Because I'm not here to take advantage of you, but I don't understand what you're saying. Right? So many of us wouldn't have even put ourselves in that situation of taking the walk. So many of us wouldn't have put ourselves in a situation of walking up that alley. And so many of us may not have bought anything. Now, I'm not saying that to say that I'm greater than you. That's not the point at all. That's not at all the point. The point here is every day you've got to choose some sort of suffering. You got to choose something that pulls you outside of your comfort zone. You got to choose something that stretches you a little bit. You got to choose something that creates just that bit of angst in you, where you have to rely on your instincts and those tiny unglamorous decisions that you make in order for you to survive and then thrive. Every single day we need to do this. It doesn't have to be big and grandiose. For me, it was buying fruit on the street that day. It was buying fruit on the street. Now, in my attempt to communicate, fortunately, a gentleman came and who was walking by, and he saw, and he spoke enough English, and I was able to work with him, to work with her, to figure out what happened. And what I learned was the pineapple was actually double the price of the papaya. And so that's why she was frustrated, because even though I gave her what I thought was, she needed more. She needed more. But I didn't know how much more when she was only holding up 4, and he was able to help. But you see, it's the work I've done in the past of being in stressful situations when you're on a walk and you're in a neighborhood or you're in a situation and you can stay calm. You can stay calm. That helps me here in this situation. See, we have to choose to put ourselves in these places every single day, because life's going to throw those curveballs at us. And when those curveballs come, the only way we're going to be prepared to hit them, the only way we're going to be prepared to win in that situation, is when we've already put ourselves through parts of it already, and we know how to rely on ourselves because we have a habit of those tiny, unglamorous decisions. Those tiny, unglamorous decisions. One of mine is the ability to communicate with another human being. To be able to connect in a way that even though we don't speak the same language, that you're going to feel my heart, that I'm not here trying to cheat you. And we're going to be able to work this out. So I can help you calm, I can calm, another guy can come in, and we can figure it all out. We can figure it all out. The tiny, unglamorous decisions. So, how are you choosing suffering? How are you choosing suffering every day? How are you putting yourself in a situation every day that's going to be a little bit difficult, that's going to force you to grow, that's going to stretch you? That's principle number 1 of resilience. We got 5 more to go. See you next time.